Okay, so I have started recording the lecture, and should we wait for three
I
or
think we should. I think we should wait for. I think maybe 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and then we can start.
okay? Because eventually the video will be uploaded in that YouTube channel, so people will watch it.
But other people will also join, right?
Hopefully. Um, how's
Hi
your life going?
guys, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How is PhD?
How's PhD?
I'm
Uh,
asking Roy Shammo.
Okay.
How is your PhD going?
I'm currently standing in a grocery store with a cart full of onions and potatoes. So that's how PhD is going. Thank you.
Very abstract, but
On the contrary, very material.
yes, it's material, of course. Right. Okay, it's 7 now, so hopefully we can expect someone to join. Life in a nutshell.
Mm.
Um,
Where are other people? Wait, I'll text some people to come.
or should we
You
just put?
you stop recording, na? You start recording to pore.
I can um, cut it or trim it.
Nah, you stop recording, फिर start recording it to pore. I guess that would be
Also,
better.
people are
कारण
joining.
केवी join करने को ना.
No, no, people are
Yes,
joining now.
yes, yes.
It's not our fault that we are on time, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we should wait 2 or 3 more minutes, then we will
Yes,
start.
we can start.
Second. Okay, Shaoli. So, would you like to start, or should we wait 1 more minute?
Let's wait 1 more minute because it's only 7:01. So we can wait 1 more minute and then start our discussion.
Great. So far, we have 8 participants.
Yes.
Okay, then.
Yes, I think we should start now.
So,
Um, Hello everyone. I'm Shaonli Bhowmik. I'm a first year PhD research scholar at the Center for English Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU, New Delhi. And today I have with me Ritam Dutta. He's a PhD scholar at the English department of Jadavpur University. So today we will be talking about our CFP that we kind of recently released on titled Blue Victorian. So I think I'll start this discussion by briefly talking about what Blue Victorian is because it's a very new discipline. So first of all, I talk about Blue Humanities because that is my area of research. So Blue Humanities is a broad interdisciplinary field that explores human relationship with water across history, culture, philosophy. It draws drawing from multiple disciplines like anthropology, philosophy, history. It explores how water functions in and across multiple scales. So It looks at how water bodies and even oceans or other water bodies also shape civilizations, culture, politics, identity. So, blue humanities look at water not only as a cultural agent, but also an agent of historical and philosophical forces, and also rather than just an ecological concern. So this another thing is that while talking about blue humanities, we are trying to shift the focus from only ocean studies and to a more localized approach towards localized and more smaller water bodies like drizzle, even water vapors, rivers, ponds, and etc. I think now Ritam will like to talk a bit about Victorian studies.
Okay, so thank you so much, Shaoli. Hopefully, I'm audible.
Yes,
So,
yes.
I will give you a very brief idea about what Victorian literature is all about and why we are going to incorporate this blue humanities sort of lens in Victorian literature. First of all, when we talk about Victorian literature, it's a time period that is so vast and complex that whenever we revisit it, we find new layers, new voices, and new meanings waiting to be uncovered. Sorry, I have to like click and allow the participants to join in. So we think of Dickens, the Bronte sisters, the Tennysons, and the Hardy, but we also think of an era that was shaped by industrial revolution, colonial expansion, and rapid scientific discoveries, and a huge conflict in religious belief. In the midst of everything, Victorian literature is not about novels, poems, or plays. It is about the way people understood and interacted with the world around them. And yet, there is one element so omnipresent, so powerful, that has often been overlooked, and that is water. So, water is the most fundamental elements of existence, not just in biological or environmental sense, but in the way it shapes human consciousness, culture, and history. As Shaoli mentioned, it has been an enduring force in literature, mythology, and philosophy, carrying layers of meaning that transcends time. Even scientific theories such as Jake's beneficious water memory, if you remember, it suggests that water holds more than just a physical
Mhm.
presence. It may carry history, memory, and even emotions. So when we turn this to Victorian literature, we find that water is not just a backdrop for maritime adventures or imperial conquest, but it is a powerful entity that influences narratives in multiple ways. So the Victorians lived in an era of unprecedented engagement with water, whether through industrial expansion, ocean exploration, or scientific discoveries. Uh, to short this thing out, in in that sense, I mean, Victorian age was deeply oceanic. The British Empire thrived on maritime trades, its navy dominated the seas, and this was an era when Darwin set sail on HMS Beagle, when explorers mapped the depths of ocean, and when industrial pollutions began to leave its relevance mark on marine ecosystems. So the sea was everywhere in Victorian life, and as a result, it found its way into Victorian literature. And yet, I mean, when we think of Victorian studies or Victorian literature, do we think of the sea as a central? Do we read Dombey and Son and immediately recognize how the ocean is both a symbol of economic power and a force of personal tragedy? Or do we see Heart of Darkness not just a critique of imperialism but a text embedded in riverine and oceanic violence? These are the questions that we always encounter, and that's why we thought of, I mean, incorporate this blue humanities in Victorian literature. So, Shawnee, would you like to say anything about it?
Yeah. So, hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are, you are.
Yeah. So basically, as Ritam has already talked about how Victorian studies should take an approach to look into water bodies. So This is, I think, where the blue humanities come in. This is where our endeavor as blue Victorian comes in. The book that we are thinking of working on is not just about revisiting this well-known text through the lens of blue Victorian, like Dickens and Tennyson and other the stalwarts of Victorian literature. It's about expanding the scope of what we consider as Victorian literature. Writers like Russell, who captures the unforgiving life at sea in the wreck of I think Grosvenor, and Augusta Webner, who used the ocean as a space of gendered resistance, a castaway deserve to be heard. And we need to understand that this is not just about the past. As David Halberg once said, more is known about the dark side of the moon that is known about the depths of the ocean. Even today, the ocean remains a mystery, from climate change of to rising sea levels, from maritime labor to the politics of borders. Our world is still shaped by water in ways we are only beginning to fully understand. By revisiting the Victorian era with the focus on sea, I think we trace the historical roots of our current ecological dilemma. So, our book invites scholars to explore not just the ocean, but the rivers, the shores, the ports, the drizzles, the spaces where the land and the water meets. We welcome contributions that explore the Victorian maritime trade, ocean empiricism, water as gender, influence of oceanography on literary forms, because in the end, Victorian literature is not only about the past, it is about the present, it is about the future, and perhaps if you listen closely enough, it is about the tides that have been shaping us all along.
Absolutely, Shaoli. And we are quite grateful enough to have received plenty of abstracts so far. And I never thought we would, manage to
Yeah,
get any abstracts. In fact, we have received papers not only from India, but uh, even from very big European continents. Like we
yeah,
received one paper from Algeria, we received one paper from Scotland. So these are the sort of variant that we have received. So people
yes,
actually accepting and liking this new initiative that we are undertaking. Uh, I would like to have this sort of a, I know, to create a sort of a discussion rather than a lecture series. So if you have
yeah.
sort of question, whether it be a technical question or it like something related to do Victorian itself, you can ask questions. Okay, I mean it's open to a discussion. Any question is welcome. Okay, I don't think people are a bit interested. Uh,
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Am I
Hi, yes,
audible?
Smita.
Hi. Shali, my question to you is what's the difference between hydro humanities and blue humanities? Can you just elaborate a bit?
Oh, actually, that is a very interesting question because I think people have this tendency of what we can say. They have a tendency of conflating hydro humanities and blue humanities because I think the idea of blue and the water of I think hydrological studies is so much been dovetailed with each other. They exist in tandem with each other. So, of course, yeah, I would definitely like to talk about it. So, as you can know, as I have talked about what blue humanities is, I think I don't need to repeat it. I'll talk about what hydro humanities is now. So, hydro in 21st century, a new interdisciplinary approach emerged carried by humanities. So, it focused on water as an active agent for social change and cultural change, such as gender, racial discrimination, how water functions in urban designs. Um, the decolonial analysis of water practices, and we call this discourse surrounding the human water power relation as I think hydrocolonialism. So now I think both of the things it can be very confusing. When I started reading hydrocolonialism and blue, I think blue humanities, it was confusing to me as well, and now I understand the sheer difference between the two. So what happens is that blue humanities, it actually started with a very online based article written by John Gillis, Blue Humanities. It was published in 2013. It was even written before the precursor of Blue Humanities, Steve Menz, who started writing in 2023. So what John Gillis did was that he was an he was an ocean historian and researcher. So what he did was he kind of imagined the entire cultural history of humankind based on the continuum of ocean. So they kind tried to look into the new oceanic voyages, the new lands that were being discovered, even the literary writings of Wordsworth, Coleridge, and others. So you can see the focus is primarily more on the cultural and historical sense. What hydrohumanity is more scientific, I guess, because blue humanities, the major difference would be that blue humanities focus on ocean studies and seas, studying their cultural, historical, and political importance. And on the other hand, hydrohumanities includes everything. It doesn't only include water; it includes shipwrecks, ships, drizzles, lakes, wetlands, glaciers, ice, and everything, all forms of water. So the scale, also we can talk about the scale. The blue humanity, the scale of blue humanity, its global focus is on more ocean. Now, even though there is a turn that the writer, the stalwarts of blue humanities like men's themselves are saying that our approach should be more localized. We should not be focusing on ocean. But then it started mainly focusing on ocean. But hydro humanities, I mean, it focuses on something more local. So there is a shift from global to local, we can see. And also, Blue humanities explore oceanic stories such as voyages, marine ecosystem, and hydro humanities. Broader water issues also they talk about, like environmental justice, water's cultural role, the impact on marginalized communities. So I think hydro humanities is has a more scientific and environmental concern, and I think and it is kind of balancing the human resilience with ecological balance, and which is a bit different from blue humanities. But yeah, I can understand where the confusion is coming from.
Thank you. Thank you for such a lovely elaboration.
Thank you. Any more questions? This is a very, I think this is a very informal talk. So I think you can ask any question, even if you think this question might sound very stupid. So you can still ask it.
Hello.
Hello.
My question too is like we talked about blue humanities in the term that it is more looking to the past, like whatever happened in the colonial past. But how can we like study the ocean in term of future, like the post-human context that we were speaking about? Like, is there any future aspect in this blue humanities or this hydro humanities that we are talking about?
Ritam, do you want to answer it or should I go ahead?
You should be the right person to answer this.
Okay. So, what happens is that if you can know that I think it's not about the pre-colonial existence of water. Water has shaped our entire life. It has shaped the way we envision things. And the one method I think I'll talk about Rizzi Baldi, and they are one of the indigenous scholars who work on water bodies. So, Ray Baldi and Rizzi, they says that water practices and talking about water can be a method for decolonization. So, if you look at the policies of water in Australia, where taking water from some place is considered to be a criminal offense, or if you look at how water functions in the sea in Pacific Ocean, and how the policies of water disrupt trade, disrupt everyone's livelihood, you will understand that this is not only a ecological force anymore. And and yeah, I mean, for indigenous people, what happens is that there is a book called Hydrocolonialism. If you want, you can look at it. So these books talk about that how the pre-colonial knowledge about water, that talks about that how they used to consider water as a very sacred entity imbibed and bestowed by spirits, deities, and ancestors. And then because the Orient and the colonizers, after colonizing a particular space, started considering this entire knowledge to be futile knowledge. So they started thinking, okay, the pre-colonial people were doing this. So maybe this is something that is very backward. This is something that we shouldn't be talking about. So when we particularly start talking, so actually this entire concept of blue humanities and even hydrocolonialism challenges the colonial notion of what is considered to be important knowledge. So, what do we consider to be Indian? I mean, what do we consider to be important knowledge? So, when the people who have been under the grasp of colonization, the people who have been, who have been colonized in the past, and when they're talk about their water, I think water issues, or for example, Baldy use this word called water view. The water existing for water's sake, the water existing as a ecological entity that exists for its own sake, not for other people. So when you talk about water as an entity that pre-colonized people used to think that it is an entity in the nation, it doesn't exist for ourselves, then it becomes a method for decolonization to happen. So yeah, I think that kind of answers it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also, okay,
Some
Peter Gillis in his article also says कि given the close contact that we are coming with water in the passage of time, that we are kind of, the glaciers are melting, the sea levels are rising, the salinity of water is rising, we will have to return to the sea. We will, so he calls this return to the beginning. Since the life, according to people, that it scientists and all, is generated in water, so we know, ordered for us to survive, we need to talk about the sea. We need to go back to our beginning. And I think it will happen more in the future, that we will have to, even if we know have no choice, we'll have to come in more contact with the water. We'll have to, the proximity with water will be very less. So I think that answers the question. I'm sorry if I talked too much.
Someone asked a question in the chat box. Umesh has written, how does Victorian literature depict the economic and class implication of water, such as access to clean water, the dangers of polluted rivers, or the working class dependence on maritime labor? Can you provide a few examples? Okay, so I think water has always, was the central aspect of Victorian literature, and it's not something that is quite like it's quite evident in Victorian literature. Even if you read Charles Dickens' novels, you will find a reference of such activity that you just mentioned. Um, and apart from the famous Orthodox writers, we have plenty of other writers. For instance, there is someone called Russell, I believe, and
Yes, yes, yes.
so if you read his works, you will find that he has always mentioned these aspects of the society. So it's there. We have. I cannot really, it's because of the confidentiality. I cannot share what we have received so far, but we have received so many papers where people have shared how stories that are not so like in the light, but still it's like showing this sort of aspects of water and the entirety of why blue humanities is important. So it is there. It is there in the Victorian literature, and I don't know whether I have satisfied you with this answer, but it is there. It's almost evident in almost everywhere. In fact, I was reading this book recently, uh, the book by his name is Withering Heights by
Emily
Emily Bronte,
Bronte.
and in fact, the essence of water was there. I can easily trace down the passages. So it was always there. It's just that we need to dig up the findings. And talking about these technical terms, okay, someone is asking. Yes, yes, of course, you can ask question.
Okay, so I do not mean to interrupt, but I was just curious that when we talk about Victorian era and the blue humanities, we cannot, of course, deny that the Victorian era was also a time of extreme colonialism. So, and colonialism was actually built on the back of ships. So, ships traveling all across the oceans, ships traveling from the European nations to the colonies and back and forth. So, all of us, I mean, every one of us have heard of the Black Atlantic by
Hmm.
Paul Gilroy. So,
Gilroy.
I'm just thinking that how would you place the studies of Paul Gilroy colonialism, and the concept of ships. No, not just colonial travel, but the aspect of ships acting as microcosms of the society. Something that Stevie Menz also talks about in something
Mm-hmm.
book called Shipwrecked Modernity. So,
Mm-hmm.
your responses to that?
Yeah. Should I go ahead and answer this question? Hello?
Yes, yes, you should go.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very interesting question, and thank you for asking this because this also makes me think a lot as well. So, as you can know that when we talk about, I think, Black Atlantic, it's the idea that facilitates resisting the tendency to reduce blackness to a monolithic notion that is only differentiated by the categories of pre and post slavery history. So you are very right. Menz himself started writing on shipwreck modernity. So what he did was, if you write his paper, the blue, there is also a paper by Menz that talks about blue and green waters, the blue and green sea of in Shakespeare. So there he talks about the water motifs in Macbeth, and I think he talks about two texts. I think he lot of work he has talked about Tempest. Then he also goes on to talk about Macbeth, and then his entire focus shifts to the Oceanus in Macbeth and Tempest. So of course, I mean, yeah, I think the fact that we are trying to conflate, I mean, trying to merge two very different disciplines. It comes from the fact that of course there are these discrepancies which we actually aim to bridge through this CFP, and of course we try to do that. So the entire focus has been on oceans, but if you read the recent works of, I think, Men's, then you see that he himself has said, okay, I worked a lot on Tempest. So he is a Shakespearean scholar as well, as you know. So when he is working so much on Shakespeare, then then his focus shifts from to Walt Whitman to Emily Dickinson. Then he says that, okay, now I'm only talking about slavery, I'm only talking about oceanic voyages in what do we call Shakespeare and in Anglophone literature. So what about the local water bodies? No, that is something that hydrohumanities talks about. And now also you are talking about, I think, water traveling. There is a book called Oceanus Method. Oceanus Method by it was a book published by the professors of Jamia. So they talked about that how ocean, they tried to shift the focus from the continuum of ocean as a agent, active agent to shape human history. So there is this chapter by Nishad Zaidi where she talks about only the Safarnamas written by Muslim travelers in the Indo-Pacific region. The Muslim travelers when they were traveling in ocean, and how their experience of traveling in the ocean goes beyond the binary of colonizer and colonized and gives a very different arena of experiences.
Is the book edited by someone called Philip Menon?
Yeah. Dilip Menon, Nishad Zaidi, and I think Simi Malhotra. So there will be the only, I think, other things talk about other things. For example, Dilip talks about the consciousness related to ocean. Nishad Zaidi talks about the indignation laborers and how the laborers came from the coast of Drabir. So the Drabirian, I think, that entire history. And Simi Malhotra's paper talks about the ocean voyage of Muslim travelers. So it actually talks about the constitution of a Muslim cosmopolitanism.
Okay, a very great explanation, Shauli, and I really like the fact. Someone mentioned that whether can I use 19th century Bengal, which is also matching with the Victorian age, and someone also mentioned me about whether they can put literature that were written when there was a migration happening from India to different countries like Fiji and all. So if the timeline is matching, then you can actually incorporate. However, you need to make sure that it has some relevance with the Victorian era. And another question that people have asked me so far is like the publication. Uh, the thing is, we cannot really confirm the publication unless or until we have the entire paper, or at least unless or until we are creating the first draft. But we have we have had some conversation with big publishing houses, and some of them has shown very good interest. So I am quite sure that the book will be published through a very reputed international publisher. So there is nothing to be worried about it. And these are the technical questions that I've received, quite often. Any question that you have? Because Shauli has been excellent throughout dealing these questions.
I don't think so. I'm like digressing like anything. I'm so ashamed right now.
No, I don't think so. Any question? If you have, it's been like a 30 minutes discussion so far.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Uh, I'm Arahi, and I'm new to this. I'm new to your forum, so I don't know what paper you are discussing about. So, can you please tell me what it is and about what books you are discussing about, so that if I could, I can take part in it.
So,
Okay.
I mean, we are talking about our CFP. So, the CFP. So, if you, I think, where have we uploaded the CFP? I mean, we have uploaded in our Facebook. Then it's circulated in some group. You can look for, and it's also in UPenn. So you can search for a CFP titled Blue Victorian. So that is what our endeavor is. That's why we are trying to talk, because 31st of March will be the last date for accepting all the papers. So that's why we thought ki maybe there will be doubts and queries, because it's a very new endeavor. No one has talked about Blue Victorian, converging Blue Humanities and Victorian Studies. That's why we started this meeting. Of course, it's a very informal one, but yeah, if you want to know more about the CFP, you can try looking for one, and I hope you will find it easily. Or you can mail one of us. I think we'll link our mail addresses in the chat box so that you can mail us with any of your queries.
Okay, sure, sure. Apart from Blue Victorian and Blue Humanities, can I ask related PhD
I mean,
question?
I think, yeah, of course you can, but then this particular lecture is not about that. I think in
Yeah,
future,
that's why I'm
we
asking.
can, yeah, me and Ritam, we can, and also my colleagues and classmates, we can of doing an entire lecture on PhD in humanities, PhD in literature. So then we will be open. I think, yeah, your question starts the avenue for us to think about it. So yeah, of course, we will organize something like that in future. So we hope to do that.
Sure, for sure. It will be like more helpful for people like us, because just now I completed my master's in English literature and I'm looking forward for doing PhD. I'm so confused about to like uh go to the themes, like what to choose and all. So
Mm.
that
No,
I'm
no,
asking you.
definitely. I mean, I think all of us, we have been there. We
Yeah.
have been to through that state of aporia. So yeah, I mean, so of course we would be happy to help, but I think now is not the proper time to talk about it. We will organize a future session to talk about these related queries.
Sure, sure. Thank you. And you're doing your research in Blue Humanities, right, ma'am?
Yeah, I'm doing my research and Ritom is working on Victorian studies.
Then what makes you to like what pulls you forward towards this theme?
Blue humanities.
Yes.
Okay. So Blue humanities itself is a very emerging discipline. So I myself have grown up in a small riverside town in the northern part of West Bengal. So I mean, I used to go with my grandfather to the banks of river. I used to see the fishermen traversing the withered bridge. I used to see them catching fishes. And I think that's how water has, then there was a huge river beside my school as well. So, and so I think this entire human water discourse came in my understanding then, and with the advent of climate crisis you understand that we cannot fight climate crisis with a particular focus on one environmental issue. So that is the thing that I also think, that the consciousness that we have about issues like climate crisis, global warming, this should be, I think, bifurcated in small forms of consciousness. So I think for me it was a consciousness about rivers, so that's why I'm focusing on rivers specifically. And if you look at the demography of Bengal, it is so much, and so it's it's kind of it's sustained by rivers, it's controlled by rivers, it's shaped by rivers. So that's why I think that was my motivation behind working on it. And I am working on regional texts, so yeah, I mean, yeah, that's why I got interested. Maybe that answers, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. And one more last question. I think I'm just interrupting a lot. One more question, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Do you think like gender studies and blue humanism can be?
Yeah, 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 definitely. So there is an entire discipline called blue feminism. I think
Okay.
you should look about it. So there is this entire discipline about blue feminism that talks about gender relations in water, that talks about how water functions. I think I have the book in my I think, yeah, this is something that will help our discussion on Blue Victorian as well. So I'll try to find it, and like I had made notes about it. I just try to find it. Just give me a second. Okay, okay. So there is this entire concept called hydrofeminism. So hydrofeminism was coined by Astrida Nemesis, and there is this book called Bodies in Water. So it's a post-human. The subtitle of the book is Post-Human Feminist Phenomenology. So hydrofeminism builds on a feminist and new materialism and environment humanities to think human and non-human relationships with water by focusing on the specific aspects of gender. So it challenges the rigid binary between man and women, the rigid binaries between human and non-human by highlighting the interconnectedness of nature of existence. So it emphasizes on water's ability to flow across boundaries, linking bodies, ecosystem, and cultures. So the hydrofeminism incorporates indigenous knowledge, systems, and view water as a sacred and interior form of life. So of course, if you want to work on blue humanities, I think it includes, I think, in blue Victorian studies also, if you see, I think Ritam will be the best person to talk about it. How, um, I mean, there was this period where women writers were not much recognized. So if you are looking at their work and you are working on the imageries of water, I think that is a very commendable job to do.
Okay. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Yeah, welcome.
Absolutely, and I hope in the future this book will create a new avenue for others to
Yes,
do their PhD. I don't know
PhD
if
and
it's,
like new scholars as well.
but hopefully, I mean, we are creating a new sort of a discourse for others. Um, any other questions? If
Tirtha Chatterjee has asked a question. So I think, Ritam, if you would like to read that
in the chat,
in the
okay.
chat box.
That's the engage with the and how does it conceptualizes the term tourism in the context? Actually, it goes beyond that. Actually, I mean, you can stick
So
to
let
the
me read the questions first. You can answer it then. So Tito Chatterjee is asking, does the book Blue Victorian engages with the broader global 19th century? And how does it conceptualize the term Victorian within that context? In using Victorian to describe a global phenomenon, does it risk reinforcing a Eurocentric framework, potentially undermining efforts to provincialize Europe and decentralize historical narratives? Or does it go beyond that through the new lens it brings into the discourse? So I think Ritam, I think you if you could answer that.
okay. So I mean, the question is directly attacking the idea, but I mean to counter this. I mean, the book likely employs blue and energy humanity frameworks, and it will decentralize British dominance and positioning Victorian as the, I mean, transoceanic interconnected phenomena rather than a monolithic European construct. Because when we see or perceive Victorian literature, we are now try to look it through multiple different perspective, and we will deconstruct this Victoria as a transoceanic place. I don't know whether I'm making any I'm giving a very concrete statement, or this is the kind of idea that we had when we started working on this. We wanted to create a new shift. We wanted to decentralize things, and that's why we started working on this project. And hopefully, in the future, we will be able to create a new avenue that will going to decentralize this idea of Victoria as a Eurocentric representation.
Mm.
Hello. Uh, yeah, so uh, thank you for coming up with this project. And I feel it's great because whenever we think about the relation between water and the Victorian age, the first thing that comes to our mind is colonialism. That colonization took place in the Victorian age and that happened through water. But I think this book might go beyond our that kind of perception that the Victorians had as a relationship with water. So in that sense, like Shauli also told about how we should perceive about water, and one thing that fire has always been conceived as the cradle for civilizations, but water too is the opposite. So in that way, I think your book might go beyond that perception that Victorian age and water are only about colonization.
Mm.
So, thank you.
Thank you so much for these kind words. I mean, we have actually received plenty of abstracts, and I have already mentioned this earlier, but we never expected this to be this huge. People from Algeria were sending abstracts, and I was
Australia,
shocked.
Algeria, yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
people.
we have received, I think, more than 10 papers from outside India, and that's a huge, I think, sort of a achievement for us. I mean, not achievement, but I think we have tried to find a good area for this book, and I think that we will be able to create a book that will create a new discourse altogether.
So Aditi Mukherjee is asking, how would you like to consider the ocean as a reflection as well as a macrocosm of human anatomy and human psyche concerning the death of P.B. Shelley, the Boston Tea Party, the anxiety of Matthew Arnold in Dover Bridge? Three events are intrinsically connected, according to me, owing to that post-colonial as well as post-colonial discourse, owing to the resistance of authority and pressures of post. Yeah, I think the question that you are asking is something that you should write in your abstract. I mean, if you find a very good connection in these three things, I think that is your idea, and you should write an abstract about it. So I think in this entire question, I think if you are actually try being able to interlink all of these things while talking about ocean, I think that is a very good endeavor. Another thing I think in this question, the part that I would like to answer is how ocean we see as a reflection of human psyche. So there's this concept that Men's write in his Blue Humanities as well, and you will find the parts and parcels of it in part and parcels of it in Blue Victorian as well. So it talks about the allure and estrangement that human beings face when you see water. So you will see that we are mammoths, sorry, we are mammals. Sorry, not mammoths. We are mammals. So then we feel interconnected to water, but then our skin is extremely dry. So in our cells that are within our body, we have water, but the outer layer of our skin is dry. So then when you see water, you feel a very uncanny and alien experience that you are feeling so drawn to water, but then you are afraid of water. So this dichotomy, the allure and estrangement that you feel with water, talks about the like how it can reflect human consciousness. So and how it reflects human psyche. So yeah, I think that would be my answer.
I think you have satisfied her question in a way. I really like the fact when you mentioned how we are actually made out of water. We are 70% water, but on a microscopic level. And it's been 42 minutes so far, and we
Mm.
have received quite a few questions. It's been a very good and engaging conversation, and I really like the fact that so many people have joined us together for this discussion. So that kind of shows how much interest that people have. Okay, so it seems like we are going to receive another abstract from Aditi very soon.
Yes.
Anyone would like to ask any question?
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to know if I can send abstract from Indian literature of the time. So you're talking about Victorian humanity and blue humanities, right? And since you're talking about like regional narratives, I was thinking if I can like connect the post-colonial aspect of it and Indian literature, not necessarily British Victorian literature, but Indian literature in that. Like, can I send abstract from that?
Okay, you can actually, but you just need to put in the timeline of Victorian literature, or
Yes,
there
yes,
needs
of course.
link, because we have received papers that are strictly connected with Indian literature. However, the timeline and the context is matching with Victorian literature. I mean, there has to be some sort of connection. So if it matches, then you can definitely proceed with that.
Okay, thank you for answering.
Thank you. Um, any other question or queries?
Hello, good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
So my question is like for hydrohumanity, we relate it to the post-colonialism and feminism. These are the aspects for it. But can we apply it for our current scenario of human emotions and connectivity with the water, like poets and authors, when they present water, they present different forms like eyes or drops or in a different forms of water, so they connect their emotions with it. So can we go beyond the post-colonialism? Like post-colonialism is good thing, but can we only relate it with the emotions and present and environmental concerns? Are you getting my point?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the entire aspect of hydrohumanity, as I told you about, is not only about human emotions, but also on the environmental concerns that builds the backbone of this entire discourse of blue humanities. That I think climate crisis was a result of years of neglect to the non-human other. So talking about water and aspects about water opens a new avenue to talk about these things and hereby instill a water-based consciousness. So if you see the rising water level, the rising salinity, things like that, I think talking about water becomes a very important thing. And of course, the water, if you see what is happening around, the water is a very major environmental issue. So definitely you can talk about it, I guess.
I think it is not more relevant because I got some reviews from my teachers that it is irrelevant thought of yours, something like that.
About talking, relating water to the environmental crisis.
Connecting it to the emotions and symbolic meaning of the water through the
Yeah,
text.
definitely you can work. For example, a friend of mine used to work on the tear droplets of angels. So
Yeah,
then,
yeah, same, same.
yeah, so I think this is very vital. I think water doesn't, is not a, the fact that you are working on something like that. For example, the first chapter of Oceana's method is on the consciousness of water, the hapticity of water, if you can think about it. So yeah, I think if you are working, then you are subverting the dominant idea that talking about the natural and environmental forces means only talking about them from the lens of environmental science. I mean, that should, even no matter what someone is telling you, I think, yeah, you are doing the right thing by dismantling these hierarchies.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so it's been like 50 minutes or so. Um, we will take one more question. If someone is raising hand again, so you can. Yes, please go on, Umesh. Umesh, if you wanted to ask a question, then you can surely. Okay, okay. It was by accident. So if you have any other question, then you can ask, or else we will wrap up this session because it's already 50 minutes, and I never thought this would go in such a way. And people were asking so many questions. I am quite humbled to see all of these queries and all. Okay, Roy has asked a question. Shauli, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, I think you should answer it first, then I'll add my points.
Okay, so see, when we talk about Victorian literature, I think I started by saying this. Like, Victorian literature is huge. It has almost every aspects, and when we receive or perceive Victorian literature, we usually stick to it through a very limited sort of lens that we have. And now, since we understand blue humanities and we had this entire discussion, uh, so it's quite important for us to integrate both these ideas together so that we can create a new sort of discourse that will going to help for future generations and for future research. So that is the most briefest way I can express. I have
Yeah.
in the beginning already expressed this. So Shaul, would you like to just take
Yeah,
it
I think
to
that
the next?
Ritam's point is well taken. What I would like to talk about is that blue humanities is a very new discipline. So I think the very shallow way to look at it will be that it will open new arenas. For example, as Reba was asking that some of our professors said that she cannot work on the hapticity of water and the consciousness of water because why do you think that the people who are in the existence episteme of knowledge think that something cannot be worked on? Maybe the reason is because it has not been worked on yet. So maybe because the blue Victorian studies is opening its lenses. It's talking about blue feminism, hydro humanities. I think while we are conflating with blue humanities and Victorian studies, it will open a new arena for the future scholars to think about, and it will help them to depart from the rigid bifurcations and the rigid categories that already exist. That, okay, if you work on Victorian studies, these are the things you can only work on. If you work on blue humanities, these are the only things you can work on. So, of course, in this age of interdisciplinarity, if you have ideas, I think it will create a hope for people to take on more projects that talk about the things that other has not been talked yet, and will open new arenas to think maybe and learn together. Because I think learning is a two-way thing.
A very good response. And okay, so it's been 51 minutes so far, and unfortunately,
Any more questions? If
exactly we have a time constraint. We cannot really exceed 1 hour mark. So we roughly have 3 or 4 minutes.
yes.
Okay.
So it was wonderful interacting with you all. So I was like super sick since morning. And then I thought, okay, we have this talk. I was scared myself. Okay, this is a new endeavor. What if people do not show up? And it actually warms my heart. It makes my heart so full to see so many people joining. And they are so interested and intrigued to talk about and ask questions about a new project. Actually, I think this made me feel better.
Exactly, Shauli, exactly. I was also having this thought, so I never expected it to be. Okay, someone asked a question.
Yeah, can you kindly tell me where to get the? Can you fast? Can you Ritam? Can you just uh get the copy paste the link of the CFP in open?
Okay, okay, I can do that. Even though I mean I'm sending you the link, but if you even if you search on Google, you will find it's quite
Yes.
comfortably. CFP Blue Victorian. Okay, I'm sending the link. Super quick. Okay, I found one. Okay, so here's the link
Yes.
for the call for paper, and it's not too difficult to find. Even if you search on Google
Mm.
CFP for Blue Victorian, you will find the University of Pennsylvania's official page, and you can easily get that information from there. Um, okay, so maybe, I mean, unfortunately, we have to wrap up this session because it's 54 minutes, and I think Aditi has a question. Yes, Aditi, you can ask question.
No, I think it's by mistake as well.
Okay, maybe. Okay, so
Yeah. So it was nice interacting with all of you. We are hoping that we'll get more abstracts from all of you in future before 31st, of course. And best of luck to all of you for your future endeavors.
exactly, all the best, everyone, and thank you for joining this session. And it was a really great discussion that just we had. So, thank you so much,
Yeah.
everyone.
And kudos to Ritam for organizing it so well. I mean, if it was me, I wouldn't. So
Thank you so much, Shauli, and thank you all for joining to this Victorian Vanguard, because ultimately it will be uploaded from that channel. So,
yes. Okay.
thank you
Thank you,
so much.
everyone. Hope you have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.